Hello everyone, welcome back to more tales of malicious compliance. Have you ever faced penalties simply for excelling at your work? My fresh supervisor removed my power, prohibited me from resolving issues, and then charged me with stealing company time when I had zero tasks other than occupying a chair. Consequently, I executed a textbook example of malicious compliance. Today's malicious compliance Reddit title story begins in this manner. I frequently joked that my profession was a professional warrior. However, officially, I was a night operations coordinator at a regional distribution center. Essentially, I remained in a control room facing a wall of screens and a bank of computers while the remainder of the facility performed the actual heavy labor. My schedule was overnight. I monitored trailer locations, temperature locks, life inventory counts, route tracking, and the dock schedule. If an issue arose, I was the individual who identified it and pulled the appropriate string. It was not prestigious, but it was vital. If a transport broke down, I was the person who rerouted the freight. If a trailer packed with produce began heating up, I contacted the driver at the dock to get it offloaded or relocated. If figures did not correspond, I flagged it before it turned into missing product and a massive headache. I have been performing this role for some time. I understood the systems, their habitual drivers, the peculiarities in the software, and even which sensors tended to display random errors. I earned $30.50 an hour, which was respectable for sitting in a seat at night while consuming podcasts and drinking excessive amounts of coffee. My previous manager comprehended my role. They did not hover. Their policy was straightforward. If you can resolve it in 5 minutes without damaging anything, resolve it. If it is larger than that, contact me or the on-call supervisor. And indeed, that functioned well. We experienced the occasional delayed load or irritable driver, but nothing significant. Then my former manager received a promotion to some regional position and everything deteriorated. Enter the new operations manager, a classic corporate climber. I'm referring to the type of individual who uses phrases like circle back and alignment in standard chats, resides within a spreadsheet, and is convinced that vibes are a metric. Everybody began referring to her as Karen quite rapidly behind her back. Not due to her hairstyle or anything, but because she possessed that combination of entitlement and artificial politeness that could decay your teeth. She made it a priority to host a grand Meet the Manager event for every shift. When she visited the night crew, she entered my control room as if she were inspecting a jail cell. She examined my monitors, my whiteboard containing the route notes, my small collection of sticky notes with driver telephone numbers, and scowled as if I had perpetrated a felony. "So, you are the night ops person?" she asked. "Yep, I just prevent the circus from burning down," I quipped. She did not even force a smile. "And how much authority do you believe you possess here?" That was an odd method to begin, but I attempted to maintain professionalism. "Well, I make judgment calls regarding rerouting, flagging temperature issues, and contacting on-call personnel when situations go sideways," I stated. "If something is outside the standard playbook, I either repair it or escalate it depending on the severity." She gazed at the whiteboard once more, as if it insulted her. "Going forward," she declared, "I desire significantly more control over what occurs overnight here. The night shift has been a black box for far too long." I did not appreciate the manner in which she stated that, but whatever. I mean, fresh manager, fresh style. For the initial week, she began by scrutinizing everything I performed. If I rerouted a truck to accomplish 2 stops on a single run to conserve time, she would email me in the morning inquiring why I diverged from the original scheme. If I contacted a driver personally regarding a sensor readout or similar issue, she would insist I should have utilized the dispatch desk initially. If I requested the dock lead to observe a strange trailer, she would gripe that I was circumventing the chain of command. There was invariably some fresh grievance. At one stage, I made a decision that actually rescued a large shipment. A driver became trapped at a shutdown way station. I had him reroute to a distinct highway, flagged it in the system, and informed the day shift so they could revise the ETA for the client. The client actually dispatched an email stating, "Thanks for keeping them in the loop." Karen then dragged me into her office the subsequent night and treated the situation like I had burglarized the facility. "You do not alter routes without my approval," she stated. "We have procedures." The option was permitting the man to sit there and miss the delivery window entirely. I noted that this way he arrived and the client was satisfied. "That is not the point," she replied. "You are not management. You do not make that call." It was like that continuously. Damned if I did and damned if I didn't. She began implementing new regulations and somehow they all landed on me and the night shift. Rule number 1, every decision that impacts routing, client correspondence, or staffing must be approved by me first. Rule 2, do not deviate from standard procedure for any rationale without written approval. And Rule 3 from Karen, you are not authorized to contact vendors, drivers, or clients directly unless explicitly instructed on a case-by-case basis. The entertaining part you are wondering about. She slept at night like a standard human being and never answered her telephone. The initial night under these new regulations, I attempted to be a dutiful employee. Consequently, a truck became trapped behind a collision and I called in inquiring what to do. Typically, I would have rerouted him, updated his path in the system by myself, and then proceeded. But instead, I adhered to the new rules and texted the emergency number she had provided us. However, there was no reply. I called, it went directly to voicemail. So now I had a driver on the line asking, "So what did you want me to do?" And a manager who refused to pick up the receiver. I attempted to keep my tone neutral. And I stated, "I am not permitted to alter your route without management approval anymore." I added, "You will have to wait until dispatch or management reaches out." He cursed under his breath. I did not fault him. That delivery ended up being late because nobody bothered to answer until approximately halfway through my sleep cycle the following day. And certainly enough, Karen sent me a nasty email inquiring why I hadn't taken initiative and performed what I used to do. When I pointed back to her new policies, she replied with something regarding expecting common sense from professional staff. This continued for a while. If I obeyed her rules, she blamed me for the repercussions. If I disregarded them, she wrote me up. The straw that broke it was not even something theatrical. It was a random night with a half-empty dock and a glitchy trailer sensor. Thus, we had a refrigerated trailer in the yard packed with items that absolutely could not get warm without transforming into a science experiment. The sensor began flagging odd readings. Not full panic alarms, but rising temperatures that were clearly abnormal. The old me would have simply called the driver in the dock, had someone check the unit, and either moved it or had maintenance examine it. That is what my former manager wanted me to do. Under Karen, I was expected to email her and await direction. So, I sent her an email and logged the alert. Then, I waited. I caved and called the dock supervisor anyway because I did not wish to be the reason a truckload of product spoiled. We got personnel out there, reset the unit, and relocated it to a powered dock. I updated the notes and proceeded with my night. The following afternoon, when I awoke, my phone was already packed with messages. Karen had observed the dock moves and realized I had made calls outside her new rules. She dragged me into her office before my subsequent shift even officially commenced. "Explain this," she demanded, spinning her monitor so I could view the dock log on her screen. "The reefer unit was warming up," I stated. "I had them move it, reset, and plug it in. If we had waited, that stuff would have spoiled." She leaned back in her chair as if I had confessed to embezzling or something similar. "You violated my direct instructions," she declared. "We have procedures for a reason. We also have product that cannot exceed a certain temperature," I replied. "I sent you an email and I didn't hear back. I did what I have always done to prevent a loss." She offered that tight, artificial grin she displayed when she believed she was winning something and she stated, "You aren't receiving payment to improvise. Your job is to just sit there, watch the screens, and do exactly what I tell you. Nothing more. I don't pay you $30.50 an hour to think. I pay you to follow orders. And incidentally, everyone, I would be thrilled to make $30 per hour with no requirement to think." That sounds like a marvelous job. She further stated, if it is not on your approved task list, you don't touch it. Clear? I felt my jaw clench. That was the first instance she had thrown my pay in my face like that. Do you want that in writing? I asked, forcing my voice to remain calm, so I don't accidentally step outside the lines again. Glad you asked, she said. I have already typed up a clarified scope of duties for your possession. I will send it to you. You will sign that you have read and understood it. I just nodded and walked out. I retrieved my phone in the hallway and the secondary email hit my inbox. I opened it and it was worse than I anticipated. My revised duties were essentially, sit at the console and monitor the system, log shipments as they are automatically marked complete, answer the main phone line if it rings, send an email summary at the conclusion of the shift with any unusual occurrences for her review, and that was it. No contacting drivers, no calling docs, no rerouting, no escalation unless there was imminent danger to life, which she had actually written out. So fire, sure, someone bleeding out, call 911. Everything else, email her, no calls, no texts, no judgment calls. And at the bottom, she added, any deviation from this scope of duties will be considered insubordination and subject to disciplinary action up to and including termination. She said HR on it, which ended up being a very foolish move on her part. I responded, also ceasing HR, stating, just to verify, this supersedes the former job description and requirements for night operations including the authority to reroute trucks, contact drivers, and escalate maintenance issues in real time. Yes, she replied. All such decisions will be handled by management during regular business hours unless explicitly directed otherwise in writing. Cool. I printed that email thread and stuck it in my locker. Then I printed another copy and taped it right next to my main monitor. And then I started doing exactly what she said. The first few nights it actually felt incorrect. I would sit there watching the live road map and the temperature locks, and my muscle memory kept yelling at me to pick up the phone and call someone when something appeared off. However, instead, I just logged it and sent her an email. If something looked weird with inventory, I noted it on my end and sent it to her inbox. If a driver called asking for help, I explained politely that I no longer had the authority to make those decisions and they would have to follow up with dispatch or management during the day. Most of them were not happy. I received a lot of, what do you even do up there then? And didn't you use to fix this stuff? I just kept pointing to the new rules. The thing is, the system is pretty automated. On a normal night, if nothing goes seriously wrong, my active tasks only take maybe 2 or 3 hours total. The rest of the time I'm just waiting for the next fire or something. Under the old setup, that waiting time was still busy because I'd be chatting with drivers, double-checking routes, and catching little issues before they became big ones. Under the new setup, once I had done my basic logging, all I could really do was just sit there. Karen's new rules didn't say I had to be constantly doing something. Though. They did not say that I had to stay on my feet, and they didn't even say that I could not close my eyes. They just said I had to sit there, watch the screens, and answer the phone if it rang. So, I did exactly what any exhausted night worker would do if their boss literally cut their job down to be physically present only. I brought a better hoodie, adjusted my chair so it reclined all the way back, set discrete alarms on my phone for every 30 minutes, and I slept. Not all night, don't get me wrong. I was not trying to get myself fired by snoring through a fire alarm. I would do my logs at the start of the shift, check the system, send whatever emails I needed to send, and then I would lean back, hoodie up, and doze in 10 to 20 minute chunks. But yes, the monitors were still in my line of sight. If I cracked an eye, the phone was next to my hand. If an alarm went off, I woke up. And if the phone rang, I answered it. If something pinged as unusual, I noted it and added it to the pile for her morning inbox. I was doing exactly what her clarified scope of duties told me to do. I was not doing anything more. I was literally getting paid $30.50 an hour to be a warm body in a chair, taking catnaps in between logs. And then the predictable events began to unfold. One evening, a trailer containing frozen product was slated to depart following my shift. The refrigeration unit began throwing minor alerts. The temperature was rising, then dropping, and then rising again. Old me would have called the dock lead and gotten someone to check the unit. Under the new rules, I pulled up the alert, documented it in the system, and sent Karen an email with the subject line, "Reefer unit temp fluctuation." Then I reclined my chair and dozed off. By morning, the trailer had sat there long enough for the product to go out of spec. It was not like a cartoon where everything melted into soup, but the temp log showed enough fluctuation that the customer rejected the load. An instant loss. I found out about it when I woke up and checked my phone. There was a long email thread with the client, daytime ops, the maintenance team, and Karen trying to figure out what happened here. Karen's first move was to blame night shift in general for not catching it. I replied to the thread with a screenshot of my email from the night before, timestamped, showing I had flagged the fluctuation and sent it exactly the way she had told me to. Then there was silence. Another night, a driver called in with a route issue again. He had been assigned a stop that was supposed to be closed by the time he got there, and he knew from experience that the client would be furious about a late-night delivery. "I just need you to update the order of stops," he said. "You used to do that all the time." "Well, I'm not allowed to change your route anymore," I said. "You will need to call dispatch during the day or talk with your driver manager." "You're there right now, though," he said. "It's just clicking a few buttons." I know, I said. "I'm just telling you what I've been told I'm allowed to do." Suffice to say, he hung up pretty mad. That route ended up late, too. The client complained. Dispatch complained. When Karen tried to say I should have used my judgment, I forwarded her the email thread where she explicitly removed that judgment. A week or two afterward, I observed something that triggered all my previous instincts. The life inventory system indicated specific high-value items were exiting the facility overnight, yet there were no matching orders or truck movements. It could have been a glitch, but it lined up with some weird badge swipes near the back door. In the olden days, I would have called security and the dock supervisors immediately. We would have pulled the footage, checked badges, and maybe caught someone red-handed. Under the new rules, I exported the weird data, attached it to an email to Karen with the subject line, "Possible shrink issue needs review," and added it to my end-of-shift summary. But this time, I didn't call security. I didn't confront anyone. That was not on my list anymore. Over the next couple of weeks, I kept seeing the same pattern. Inventory short here, odd scan there, things leaving on paper that didn't match any outgoing manifest. I kept logging it and emailing it to her because that's what my job had been boiled down to. And by the way guys, if you would have been in Arp's shoes and you saw these sudden changes which actually looks like someone is stealing or whatever, or at least something is going seriously wrong, would you have acted the same way OP did or would you have really pointed it out to Karen? I mean OP is really in the process here of just maliciously complying with what Karen ordered him to do. However, I'm curious how you would have handled it. Also, please don't forget to like the video and let me know in the comments where you are watching from today. So then I started hearing rumors from the day shift, big unexplained inventory losses, accounting getting involved, a client complaining about missing items and multiple orders, lock changes, and suddenly there were security stand-downs where everyone's bags got searched. Day shift people would vent to me and I had to just nod and shrug. Eventually, one of the daytime supervisors asked me, "You haven't seen anything weird overnight, have you?" I've been emailing everything unusual to management like I'm supposed to. I said, "You will have to ask them what they've done with it." They looked confused but dropped it. Meanwhile, I kept getting paid to sit in my chair, answer the phone, send emails, and sleep. It went on like that for a while. And before you inquire, the losses accumulated. The late deliveries stacked up. Clients started asking questions. One of our bigger accounts sent a formal letter basically saying, "Fix your service or we are walking." And that is when the regional leadership finally became aware as well. One evening near the conclusion of my shift, someone I had never seen before walked into the control room with Karen and our daytime warehouse manager trailing behind them. This new person had the classic, "I'm important but tired of everyone's nonsense" look. Regional VP vibe. They introduced themselves and asked me to walk them through what I did on a normal night. So, I did. I explained how I monitored routes, logs, and alerts. I explained what I used to be allowed to do, and then very calmly explained what my job had been changed to under Karen's new email. I didn't editorialize. I just laid out the facts and handed them the printed email where she had removed all my authority along with my confirmation email and her "yes, this replaces your old job duties" response. Karen cut in fast. "Let's not make this about semantics," she said. "The real issue is that night shift performance has dropped dramatically. We've had loads of inventory losses and I've personally seen this employee asleep at the console." There it was. I knew she would go there eventually. The VP looked at me. "Is that true? Have you been sleeping on shift?" I shrugged. No point in lying. I have leaned back and closed my eyes when there were no active tasks and no alerts. "Yeah," I said. "My current written duties don't require constant activity. They only require that I be here, log what the system shows, answer the phone, and send emails." "You're being paid to work, not nap," Karen snapped. He has basically admitted to time theft. I looked at the VP and then at her email again. My original job description, which is still in the HR system, lists a bunch of responsibilities that would keep me busy, I said. Rerouting, real-time contacting drivers, escalating maintenance issues, coordinating with docs, that kind of thing. I used to do that all the time. But since this email, my actual duties are so limited that there are huge chunks of the night where I have literally nothing to do but sit here and wait. If you want me awake and staring at the wall for 8 hours instead, I can do that. But that's not what she wrote down. The VP asked Karen, "You removed his authority to make real-time decisions." "I streamlined it," she said. "Too much freelancing overnight. I centralized decisions so nothing would be done without proper oversight." He flipped through the printouts. "And you told him not to call you overnight." "I told him not to blow up my phone for minor issues," she snapped. "He still has common sense." I pointed to a line in her email. She specifically said that all decisions would be handled during regular business hours unless explicitly directed otherwise in writing. I asked for clarification in case of refrigerated product and routing issues and she confirmed it applied there too. The VP read that part slowly. Then he looked at me. "Those spoiled loads we had recently," he said, "including that big one last week. Did you see those temperature issues?" "Yeah," I said. I logged the alerts and emailed them to her as soon as they popped up. Under my old job duties, I would have had authority to call maintenance and the doc and deal with it on the spot. I stopped doing that when I was written up for doing it without her approval. He looked like he was putting a lot of things together at once. "And the inventory discrepancies that started at night," he said, "were those flagged?" I pulled out a folder where I'd been printing my more serious emails because I'm petty like that. "These are all the emails I've sent about unusual overnight inventory activity over the past month or so," I said. Every one of them went to her just like she instructed. He flipped through page after page. Timestamps, export logs, all attached to emails addressed to her. He didn't say much, but his face said enough. Karen tried one last angle. "You're missing the point," she said. "Even with clear instructions, a competent employee doesn't just sit there. He should have gone above and beyond. The last time I went above and beyond, you wrote me up for insubordination," I said. "You told me in front of HR that my job was to sit there, watch the screens, and do exactly what you told me. So that you don't pay me to think, I took that seriously." HR had apparently kept notes from that meeting because the VP turned to them and asked if it was accurate and they nodded. The VP sighed and massaged his temples. "All right," he stated. "Here is what I am observing. We possessed a night operations role that was functioning well. We then hired a new manager who removed the real-time authority from that role, instructed the employee not to make judgment calls, and centralized decisions to herself during hours she was not present. When predictable problems arose, they were not handled in real time because the person in the chair had been told not to handle them. And then when those predictable problems became real losses, the manager attempted to blame the employee for following her written instructions. Nobody said anything for a second. "It is not time theft to do only the work your manager allows you to do," he said finally. It is, however, a serious management failure to neuter a critical safety and oversight position while still staffing it. Karen went red. "With respect," she said. "I was trying to bring structure to a sloppy process. Night shift has always been a bit too casual. Night shift was not losing us hundreds of thousands of dollars in product and contracts before you got here," he said. His voice was not loud, but it was final. "Yet all of these issues started after you changed how this role operates." HR asked me to step out of the room at that point, so I didn't hear the rest of the conversation. I went back up to my control room, sat in my chair, and stared at my taped-up copy of her email for a while. For the first time in weeks, I stayed awake the whole rest of the shift without even trying. Adrenaline will do that to you. Over the next few days, things moved fast. Karen stopped coming in. People whispered about investigations and liability. HR scheduled interviews with half the building. I sat down with them and the VP again and walked through a few more nights in detail showing how things had worked before versus after her clarified duties email. They pulled system logs. They talked to drivers. They cross-checked my emails with the timestamps on the spoiled loads and missing inventory. And well, the stories lined up. A little while later, HR called me into their office with the daytime warehouse manager and the VP on speaker. They told me that Karen was no longer with the company. Now, they didn't go into too much detail. But there were words like poor judgment, failure to follow established risk controls, and creating liability in there. Then, they did something I absolutely didn't expect. They apologized to me. Not in a big dramatic way, but the daytime manager looked me in the eye and said, "We put you in a bad position. You tried to warn us and we didn't listen. That's on us." They also told me they were restoring my original job description and authority with a slight pay bump for increased responsibility. It was not some huge life-changing raise, but it was enough to matter. On top of that, they wanted my input on rewriting the standard operating procedures for night operations. The VP actually said, "Clearly, you know how to keep this place running at night better than the people who tried to fix it." I went back to my shift that night with my old responsibilities reinstated. The first thing I did was take down the clarified scope of duties email from the monitor and shred it. I still monitor the screens, log shipments, and answer the phone. Now I also went back to calling drivers when alarms went off, rerouting around closures, and getting maintenance on potentially bad equipment before it failed. I called security the next time something looked off with inventory and they actually caught someone pulling boxes that they shouldn't. I also went back to staying awake the whole shift, which my body hated for a few days because it had gotten used to my little chair naps, but it felt good to be useful again. People on the dock started dropping by the control room again to ask for help or give me a heads up. Drivers called and said, "Glad you're allowed to fix stuff again." The general mood on nights got better. Furthermore, we stopped bleeding inventory and late loads. And the best part, though, was the petty little detail that never stopped being funny to me. For those weeks where my boss decided my job was just to sit in a chair and not think, I did exactly what she ordered. I followed her rules to the letter. I documented everything and I literally got paid $30.50 an hour to sleep between system checks while her decisions lit the building on fire. She tried to use that against me and it blew up in her face because the receipts all pointed back to her own words. Malicious compliance at its finest. I did what I was told and she got fired. By the way, now every time someone new comes into the control room and jokes about my cushy job, I just smile and say, "You have no idea how stupid this could get if management lets it." Because I've seen exactly how stupid it can get, and I got paid to take naps while it did. And the next one is another fascinating story from our petty revenge, malicious compliance. It is titled, "Politicians Ignore Warnings About Publishing Everyone's Data Online." So, back when every business and government was starting to get their services accessible online for the first time, there was a new law passed in my state that all local government public records must be accessible via the web. Those records held by local government included dog registrations, building plans and permits, property ownership information, etc. And up until this point, you had to physically turn up at the local government offices and have your name recorded to access such info. But it was free to access and they were not permitted to deny you. At the time, I was the webmaster for one of the local government areas in Australia. When this was first proposed, we highlighted that residents would be very upset by making this info easier to access and potentially for people to scrape the entire data set. Tests to prove that you were human were not very reliable back then. This was politics, so we were somewhat surprised that the politicians didn't see the potential public backlash. We also wanted to protect our residents from people who would try to abuse or profit from mass access to this info. Our warnings were ignored, so we complied maliciously. I wrote an absolutely brilliant info portal with the best capture we could implement at the time, which complied exactly with what the law required. We ensured the local newspaper knew the exact date and time it would go online and what would be published. It was easy to find and put in a lot of time to ensure news media would be able to easily demonstrate the potential harm. So then the following day, front page news about the massive privacy issues this could pose. That morning, we were told to take it offline and it stayed offline permanently. The portal was up for a total of 27 hours. In the aftermath, politicians tried to shift the blame to our local government leadership, who shifted this to us in the IT department. We had prepared a paper trail to ensure that those truly responsible were given all the credit for the project and those who rebuffed our warnings had their emails included in the Freedom of Information requests made during the investigation. And the next one is a petty revenge story which is titled, "A Man Was Very Rude to My Grandma, So I Got My Revenge." I was shopping with my grandma for Thanksgiving at the local supermarket. It is very busy and all the carts make things very slow to move. I hear a disgruntled huff from behind and some 40-something old man is almost ramming his way through with a cart. He hits the cart my grandmother is holding, jostling her slightly. A clear accident I would have thought until I heard him say, "Some people really are rude." I almost did a double take when I heard that. And to say this annoyed me is an understatement. We tried to brush it off and continue shopping. About 5 minutes later, I see him again walking towards the bathroom and I immediately have a brilliant idea. I tell my grandma I'm going back to the produce section and hurry off. I find his cart quickly because he had a lot of water stacked in it. I wheel the cart off in the opposite direction and take it to the other side of the store, wedge it in a corner out of everyone's way near the employee entrance. Walking back to grandma with a smile on my face while in the checkout line, I see him walking around confused with a really ugly mug. Grandma asked me why I was smiling so much and I just told her I remembered something funny. And yes, guys, thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe and I will see you again.